Good evening. So we can begin tonight by rejoicing that Venerable Chodron is attending His Holiness's teachings on Buddha Palita's commentary on fundamental wisdom of the Middle Way today at the temple in Dharamsala. And she returns to the Abbey this Sunday, the 9th. And we can also rejoice that we've had a whirlwind of Dharmic events in the last week. We had a wonderful long weekend retreat on concentration, developing concentration with Venerable Sangye Kadro. And then with less than 24 hours turnaround, we hosted over 95 people for beautiful teachings, one-day teaching with Ling Rinpoche on the songs for mindfulness. So we're catching our breath. We just saw Rinpoche off this afternoon, and it was a beautiful visit. So we have a lot to rejoice in tonight. So let's take a moment to cultivate our motivation. Rinpoche reminded us in so many ways the power of our mind being the creator of our experiences, and especially reminding us of the importance of compassion as our main motivation. And so let's just take a moment to reflect on some of his teachings. He went into some of the sufferings that we experience as sentient beings, and those are so important to reflect on and really cultivate deeply so that we develop a strong wish within ourselves to be free of that suffering. And so each day, in various ways, we experience suffering of change, which we usually identify as pleasurable experiences, pleasurable sensations. And all of that comes about due to pervasive suffering of conditionality. And so in our lives, then we need to recognize these as suffering, as unreliable, as constantly changing, impermanent in nature, so that we can see samsara for what it is, and so that we actually develop this strong yearning for a stable, lasting, reliable happiness that the Buddha described, the Buddha talked about. And so sometimes that's described as compassion for self. We develop this wish to be free of this unsatisfactory, unreliable nature of samsara for ourselves. And that serves as a basis then for us to develop compassion, wishing for others who are just like us, wanting to be happy, wanting to be free of suffering, wishing for them to be free of this unsatisfactory nature as well. Wanting to be free of this whole samsaric experience, which Rinpoche described as basically our contaminated aggregates, our aggregates controlled by karma and afflictions. And so when we reflect on our own situation deeply again and again and again, and then we extrapolate that to understand that every living being is caught in the same samsaric ocean as we are, the same cycle, the same wheel of going from rebirth to rebirth to rebirth, doing the same old thing again and again, getting the same results. Then we can generate a strong heart of compassion, a wish for those all beings, ourselves included, to be free of suffering. And so then we have to ask, well, how is it that I can possibly benefit beings in the most extensive way? And if we look towards the Buddhist teachings, then we see that Buddhas, having developed complete omniscience, complete clairvoyance of the capacities of all beings, they know exactly what to say, as Rinpoche demonstrated for some of us, know exactly what to say to each individual to help them make the next steps on their spiritual journey, to help them progress along the path towards full awakening. And so tonight, just take a moment to generate that strong wish to actually accomplish a purified state, a mind free of afflictions, free of obscurations of all types, and developing all our positive qualities to the utmost extent: compassion, wisdom, ability to benefit others. So we wish to develop the state of Buddhahood so that we can actually benefit others in the most far-reaching way. Did anyone notice any erroneous syllogisms arising in their mind in the last week or so? Venerable Pende, you want to share yours? Would you mind sharing yours?
No, I don't. Please feel free to laugh at my syllogism. The subject Venerable Pende is a bad student because the subject Venerable Pende hasn't memorized all the definition yet.
Oh. Okay, so let's check. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead. So one of the skillful means that Venerable Chodron has shown us, for those of you who are maybe here for the first time, have you been watching the debate classes? Okay, so one of the things we do, we're looking to develop correct syllogisms, and one of the skillful ways that Venerable has shown us how valuable this study of debate and logic and reasoning is by looking at some of our erroneous ways of thinking. We're creating syllogisms all the time. I'm going to do da-da-da because da-da-da. Fill in the blanks. But we never check to see is that a correct reason or not. And so this gives us a very simple way to check. So we write up the subject. The subject is Venerable Pende. Now this is an erroneous syllogism, so it shouldn't make sense, right? But a lot of what we think doesn't make sense, but we never check to find out that what we're thinking doesn't really make sense until we check. So, Venerable Pende, that's the subject, or consider the subject. Venerable Pende. Okay, the predicate is a bad student. That's the predicate. Because signals the reason. Now, here's the reason she found in her mind in that moment. Because Venerable Pende has not memorized all definitions. All definitions, that's a very large category. How would you narrow that down? I mean, it's not a correct syllogism, so maybe we'll just look at it as you've stated it. Okay, so first of all, we check to see, is there a relationship between the subject and the reason? So Venerable Pende has not memorized all the definitions. Is that true? All definitions is very broad. I haven't memorized all definitions. Anybody here memorized all definitions? Only a Buddha, probably. Yeah. So the subject is not established, is it? That's what we say, the property of the subject. The subject is not established. The reason is not established.
It is.
Oh, right.
But she hasn't memorized all of
Okay, yes, you're right. I'm sorry. You're going to have to really watch me closely tonight because I have about one brain cell left, okay? So if I say something that, you too. I think we're all in about the same boat tonight, so, okay, collectively we'll have a few. All right, so Venerable Pende has not memorized all definitions. Okay, right, fair enough. But now we check, is there a relationship or is there a pervasion between the reason and the predicate? If someone, we can make this, well, we better stick with the subject because you said Venerable Pende. If Venerable Pende has not memorized all definitions, she is necessarily a bad student. Is that true? Well, what's a bad student? Someone who hasn't memorized all the definitions. So you see, we need to have airtight understandings of all the different aspects of the syllogism so that we can really check. Otherwise, we're talking about very vague things. But what do you think? Is there pervasion with that? No, there's not pervasion. Actually, Venerable Pende, I see you with your book open often at night. So you're working pretty hard as far as I can see. Yes, I was going to add that, yeah, more than others, but, I won't, we didn't need to go there. Okay, so thank you for sharing your erroneous syllogism, and it's not true, so you can let that go. Okay, anyone else? Yes. So we pass the microphone around.
The smoke in the air
Take the subject, the smoke in the air.
is going to be like this every year. Because it's been like this the last 4 years. This is something I've thought and even said to people. We've discussed like this too.
Yes.
We can't build this smelter because the air is going to be like this now.
Yeah.
We have kind of thrown this around in our own way, shape, or form.
Thank you. Okay.
Because the air has been like this the past 4 years, the air with smoke?
Because there's been smoke, lots of smoke, because there's been smoke in the air like this for the last week.
Okay.
So like this, you're referring to the summertime when there's lots of wildfires all around us in California, British Columbia, Washington, Idaho, Oregon, Montana, and the wind comes our way. Okay, so let's take a look. The smoke, so take the subject, the smoke, or consider the subject, the smoke in the air. The predicate is going to be like this every year. And the reason, because there has been smoke in the air like this the last 4 years. Okay.
The smoke in the air is going to be thick.
Smoky. Smoky.
Like it is now, every year. Make it clear, thick like it is now.
Yeah.
It could be better done. I could say it's on the hazardous or the unhealthy scale.
Yeah. So the air.
The smoke in the air is going to be on the unhealthy scale every year. Because we have a scale, they measure it. You can look it up on the web. It goes from unhealthy to hazardous to severely hazardous. I don't remember what it is before unhealthy. I didn't look. Tolerable.
Instead of the water filter, you'll need an air filter.
Yeah, we have them.
Every year.
Okay. So let's,
In the summer.
Every summer.
Every summer.
let's say every
summer. Okay, the smoke
We're
in the
getting
air, the
close.
subject, the smoke in the air is going to be on the unhealthy scale every summer because there's been smoke in the air the last 4 summers.
Unhealthy smoke in the air in the
Unhealthy
summer
smoke
the
in the
last 4 years.
Okay, good. There's been unhealthy smoke in the air last 4 summers. Okay, so the subject, the smoke in the air, there's been unhealthy levels of smoke in the air the last 4 summers. Is that true?
No.
Was it last year, was it the fall?
3 out of 4. I don't think 2015.
Let's pass the microphones around so I don't have to repeat everything. Do we have 2 mics? Where's the other one? Okay, let's move it around.
I don't think it was like this in 2015. I think it was 2016, 2017. 3 out of 4.
2015 was the year that there were fires very close to the Abbey, right?
Oh, well, then maybe it was the
And
2014 that it wasn't, because I was working in the woods here.
Okay, so
So that maybe
in the last 3 years.
That we know for sure.
Okay, so now is the property of the subject established? Okay.
Last year, the smoke was in the fall.
No, it was during the year.
No, no, I was here until August 21 last year, and the smoke came after.
And Venerable Jigme took me to urgent care on Labor Day weekend because the particulate matter in the air was the worst of anywhere in the state of Washington.
Labor Day happens in the summer.
That's fall. That's fall.
When does fall? Yeah. Okay, so late summer. Okay, so it snuck in. We got bad air quality last summer, late summer.
Into the fall.
And it went into the fall. Okay, so we can't really, summers doesn't quite work.
Is there an EML too, though? Because when was here.
Well, the problem is if we say years, then we're talking about the entire year, and that we didn't have bad air quality every day of the year, the last 3 years. Yes, but even in the summer, summer starts when? June 21st, and so you see, this is where we're learning to be very precise in how we think and how we speak and how we check our thoughts, our thinking process. What's that? We're thinking. Okay, so Venerable Tarpa is saying that we're thinking this and we're generating emotions off of this, but we're not really precise. We're being very general. Just because we think something doesn't make it true. Okay, thank you for sharing your syllogism. Okay, anyone else? Well, okay, this is my bias that if the property of the subject is not established, then you don't go on to look at the pervasions. But we could. Okay, let's look at the pervasion. Because there's been unhealthy levels of smoke in the air the last 3 summers, there's necessarily going to be unhealthy, there's going to be air on the unhealthy scale every summer from now on. Something like that. Is that necessarily true? No pervasion.
No
Okay.
provision. We could have a switch in the weather and be wet again, or everything could burn up and be nothing to burn.
That's a cheery thought. All right, so that gives us an idea. And, probably there were many other erroneous thoughts like, this person should do this job because it's not my job. How's that one? I had a few of those.
Is her name on the list to do it?
Yeah, Matt?
I don't have words that are precise for it yet,
Okay.
but I shouldn't say something because it's unfavorable. Seems to be something that we do over and over. Like just now, I shouldn't talk about, something I don't want to happen.
Oh. Well, no, I don't think we have that superstition too much here. But, the point was, none of us are, well, let's not get into a discussion about the smelter, but
We could talk about the death of our teachers or something. Like nobody wants to talk about that.
Oh,
but
I
it's
did hear
something-
someone,
yeah.
a visitor said
Yeah.
that. No one from the Abbey, but a visitor did say that. Okay, all right. So let's,
I can't think of it.
yes, you can. You can start, and then we'll pick it apart. This is what we do.
Okay, let's go. People shouldn't talk about death because it may happen quicker.
Okay, let's look at that, because you do hear that. In general, that's stated a lot. Just hold on to that microphone, because you're not off the hot seat yet.
Because
Okay.
it might happen?
It might happen quicker. Sooner is a better word.
Okay. Now, this is actually a good syllogism to work with, because now the subject is people. Take the subject, the people, and then look at the reason. Because what is it referring to? So, because death might happen sooner. Is there a relationship between death might happen sooner and people? There's not a clear relationship there between the subject and the reason. So,
Because people fear it might happen soon. People shouldn't talk about death because people fear it might happen soon.
okay. So why don't you make that correction? This side of the room, you got to use your microphone. Come on.
I think the way it's phrased gives us the wrong impression of what's the subject. Talking about death. Talking about death is unadvisable because it will happen sooner. And then, I don't know, talking about is what is the subject we're looking at here.
Thinking about death.
Or even, it's not people. People is not our subject. It's just what we've put that in the sentence and haven't structured it properly.
Okay, good. So what would you suggest? Christina's got something.
The subject talking about death? Or if Christina has.
The subject talking about death is not advised because talking about death makes death happen sooner.
Okay, and that tends to bring more problems because advised by who?
Is not
Talking about death is not suitable or favorable
Wise.
because talking about death brings death about sooner. Okay, so talking about death is dangerous because it makes death happen. Because talking about death makes it happen sooner. So we need to tie the subject and the reason. So that,
you don't have to put the subject in the
well, we're referring back to the subject though because it makes death happen sooner. Okay, so if we look at that statement, then is there a relationship between the reason and the subject? There is. Okay.
I just love that.
We got the gist.
Talking about death is dangerous because talking about death will happen soon.
Okay, so now let's check the pervasion.
Because
Well,
talking about death
Will make death happen sooner. Okay, so then let's check the pervasion. Talking about death will make death happen sooner. If talking, let's see. Talking about death and talking about death will make death happen sooner. Yeah, okay, is that, you shook your head, yes, what were you thinking? Yeah. We were talking about the property of the subject. I'm blankly looking out of the audience and I see some heads going like this, so I'm wondering, what were you thinking? Because I wasn't. Sorry. Then it was
What seizure shouldn't be done.
little in-joking there. Okay. All right. So talking about death is dangerous because talking about death brings death sooner.
Sure.
Brings death sooner. Okay. And is that true?
I don't think it matters whether it's true. I thought it matters if they're related.
Well, it has to be a property of that subject 100% of the time.
I thought that was the pervasion part.
Okay.
So I'm clear on the checks here. I thought we were supposed to check that the subject and the reason were thoroughly related to each other.
Yes.
And then check if the,
Okay,
the
so let's check.
subject pervades the, or sorry, the predicate pervades.
Talking about death brings death sooner. Is that necessarily a property of talking about death? Necessarily, if you talk about death, it will bring death sooner? No. There's no real correlation there, is there?
It remains to be seen because somebody who thinks this way does think that.
But does it accord with reality? We need to use our own logic here. Does it accord with reality?
Can you prove it doesn't?
You would need a whole other syllogism to prove it does.
Can you prove it does?
No, that's what the syllogism is for.
Oh. Hey.
Today is not a good day for that.
Oh, scary.
Thinking
So-
death is dangerous because death will happen sooner.
Thinking death is bad too.
Talking about death makes people fall.
So my understanding about looking to see if the property of the subject is established, you're looking to see, is there some relationship, is that reason a property of that subject? So the subject is talking about death. Is it necessarily the case that talking about death is related to making death happen sooner? I think just common sense says no. People talk about death all the time. And of course, we're all going to die, but it's not as a result of talking about death. And if it was, it would have to happen that way all the time. And then we'd have to say, well, how soon after you talk about death does it correspond? Or how much do you have to talk about death? You see, it becomes very, yes.
If it was true, then the Buddhists would be dying in
And if it was, yeah, that's
huge
true.
numbers.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, please.
I have a syllogism, but I don't know whether it satisfies the thing about you have to have something that you don't know. But some people avoid talking.
Well, okay, let's. I think we're finished with this one. Oh, it's related to this. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
Some people avoid talking about death because they believe it brings death about sooner.
Some people
Some
avoid
people
talking about death.
Avoid talking about death because they believe it brings death about sooner.
Nice.
So then, some people believe talking about death brings death about sooner,
And that's true.
That's true. And then I think even the pervasion works. If you believe talking about death brings death about sooner, then you avoid talking about death.
Nice. Okay.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
It works in terms of a syllogism because there's no
Right.
you're not
Now,
trying to prove.
we're working with erroneous syllogisms here, but if we were actually looking for correct syllogisms, then the subject and the predicate need to create a thesis that someone has a doubt about. They already have realized the subject and the reason have a relationship, and they've even realized that the reason and the predicate, there is pervasion, but they have a doubt about the subject and the predicate. So often when we bring up these erroneous syllogisms, there's not really a question about proving a thesis, but it brings home a different point. Yes, Karen?
Just thinking if someone didn't talk about death, then it won't happen.
Oh, the opposite. It follows then, if someone didn't talk about death, death wouldn't happen.
Yes, thinking about if
Uh-huh.
if you didn't talk about death, then death won't happen.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah, that would be a consequence of that line of reasoning, wouldn't it? Okay. That's not a hard and fast, but maybe that's they're really going on this one. Okay.
Yeah, we're really going on this. So, like even still, though, not necessarily death, but I totally attribute not thinking about a court case to getting a not guilty verdict. Like, I didn't think about a court case, and then the case got dropped. Like, in my mind, those are so connected.
Are you talking about your court case
Yeah.
that happened earlier?
Yeah, so experientially, not necessarily we're not talking about death, but if I avoid thinking about court, then I won't have to deal with any consequences of court. And it worked out this time.
There's a coincidence, I think, that happened there. I wouldn't. Yeah, I wouldn't push that karma.
So it really worked once. If it doesn't hurt me.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to say was, even though we're working with this and it's not coming out, I thought it was an important topic because in Buddhism we do talk about death. We prepare for death, and some people are real turned off by that in our society. Venerable has talked about that, how they wouldn't talk about death when she was a kid, and so it's a very important thing to look at. A syllogism that comes to my mind related with the topic Matt was just talking about is, let's see, the subject, X kind of people. I'm not going to bring any group into this.
Okay.
X kind of people are untrustable, untrustworthy, because the only X kind of people I ever met robbed me.
Oh.
And I know someone who had that syllogism, and I was just, but it's not uncommon.
So because of one experience, a person extrapolates and projects something on a whole race, class,
right, and it might not
group.
be, and it might not be robbed. It might even be something more innocent that is culturally different.
Somebody lied to me, and therefore all of those people will lie to me.
Yeah, or they treated me a certain way, and it could just be a cultural difference. It might not even be something that they consider negative, or whatever, just by judging something of one thing about a person. So we could look at that syllogism, I guess.
I think is also very applicable. Using the same kind of structure, we can change untrustworthy and robbed and just put in anything that we don't like about other people.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And then generalize that whole group.
Mm.
Yeah. Okay, good. And so let's take a look at that. So the subject X kind of people are untrustworthy because only X,
Only X kind of people I've met robbed me.
because X kind of people I've met robbed me. You could even take out the only, because maybe you only had one experience and they robbed or they lied or they abused me or criticized me. We could put in many different adjectives there, or harmed me in some way. Okay, so let's analyze this. Okay, the reason not established from the back of the room. So let's see. The subject X kind of people. I can't. It's no. That's the predicate. We're checking now the subject and the reason. Yeah, the subject X kind of people, because an X kind of person robbed me. That's what I can read.
Would it be just X kind of person robbed me?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
subject
Well-
X kind of person.
Well, I assume that was your only court case. And so I thought only really worked in there because they had only
Oh, I
one
see.
experience.
I see.
That's the only
I see.
experience they've
Okay,
had.
good point.
They haven't had a counter experience. And this guy, Missouri, we called him, that's what he said. He said, so, and he's the only one I ever met tried to rob me, And I'm like, yeah. Well, I had asked him, how many of those kind of people do you even know? And he's like, well, I met one, but he tried to rob me,
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was having a little bit of personal experience and then not
A prejudice
having
is
any
born.
counter experience and just thinking that one experience makes it necessary. So for him, the subject and the reason did work,
Uh-huh.
but there's
Because-
no provision.
Well, I think you couldn't say X kind of people robbed me. You could say one
The
person.
only he said
one
the
person.
only X kind of person I met robbed.
Oh,
me.
I see.
That's what it says.
Oh, I see.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I can't read that. And
But I do think that then the predicate, what we got is no provision.
got no provision, because just because the only X person I met robbed me doesn't mean that all those X kind of people are untrustworthy. Okay, good. That's a very good syllogism for. Okay.
Oh, we make it simpler and just say tall people are untrustworthy. There's only a tall person.
Okay, let's use an example. So, Venerable Tarpa is suggesting a tall person.
It's not gonna work because you're comparing the group to an individual.
Okay,
I don't see how
I think it's got to happen in the reason then, because. Okay, Christina, pass the microphone. Could we just be a little more attentive and pass the microphone quickly? Thank
So the subjects are not the same.
Yep.
The first is a group, and the second is
Is a
individual,
person. Good.
and that's the
Glad you spotted
error
that.
of the syllogism is you're generalizing to a group.
That's
based
the
on
error of the
one.
syllogism, right? Uh-huh. Okay, there we have it. The property of the subject doesn't work.
Often gives this example when a child falls once, it will never walk again. If a subject, when my jumper has fallen once, she will. No, how you say that? The subject jumper has will not walk again because she has fallen once or something.
Fallen down once. Uh-huh. Okay. So tonight, because we've been so busy the last few weeks, and the last few weeks, and especially the last week, let's just go back to what we've been doing since April. I found as I went back and looked at my notes, probably even before that, but. Let's just do some gentle review. It's always good to go through these things and hear them again, and we can rejoice when we find definitions and divisions and comparisons that we understand and know and have put deep imprints on our mind, and we can also fortify the definitions that maybe are a little bit shaky in our mind. So when you divide selfless, how many divisions are there? Those two can't be posited individually. It follows those two can be posited individually. What are they? Posit them.
The subject, existent and non-existent.
The subject, it follows the subject, existent and non-existent are the divisions of selfless?
Are division of selfless.
Okay. How do the two compare, the selfless and existent? Three P. Anything else? Any other? Which way does the pervasion go? What pervades the other?
Pervades existent.
Selfless.
Selfless
Pervades existent. Right. So the larger circle would be, if we draw this, we have different ways of drawing this. So we have three possibilities. 3P is our shortcut for three possibilities. That means that whatever is in existent is necessarily selfless, but whatever is selfless is not necessarily existent. For example, skyflower or any non-existent. Okay. How do the two compare, existent and non-existent? Mm.
Can't compare them because non-existents don't have any qualities to compare.
Thank you. How did the two compare, selfless and pillar and pot, the two? This was in our text.
Yes, they can't be so.
Okay, so how did the two compare, selfless and pillar and pot, the two? 3P, you think? Okay. Can you give me an example of something that's both pillar and pot, the two, and selfless?
Pillar and pot, the two. Pillar and pot, the two.
Is there something that is pillar and pot, the two?
No.
There's no sky flowers, and they're selfless also. You can't give an example of a sky flower.
It is an existent. Yeah, it is an existent. But yeah, it doesn't have any. How did we talk about that? They're mutually exclusive. Yeah, there can't be a pot and a pillar. Okay, that we would have to go back and really look at that section of the book. That's too difficult. We'll throw that one out, okay? All right, the definition of existent can't be posited. Yeah.
Why?
So it follows the definition of existent can be posited.
I accept.
Posit that definition.
The definition of an existent is an object that can be observed. Observed is in there somewhere. An object is observed by a reliable cognizer.
Okay, so it follows the subject, that which is observed by a valid, reliable cognizer is the definition of existent.
I accept.
Good. Okay, how do the two compare, existent and that which is observed by a reliable cognizer? Trying to make it easy. Mutually inclusive. Right, okay. They're mutually inclusive because, yeah, me too. They're mutually inclusive because everything that is one is the other. Well, yeah, whatever is included in one. These are, well, yes, okay, we'll just leave it at that for now.
Instant of something that is an existent is an instance of something that which is observed by a reliable cognizer.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay, so for two things to be mutually inclusive, our text described two criteria. One is that the two things are different. So to compare two things, they must be different, and they share the 8 doors of pervasion. So that can include things like definitions and definitions. That's what we were just looking at. But it can also include synonyms or equivalents, like what? What's an example of two equivalents that we could? Functioning thing and impermanent phenomena, for example. Yep. Okay. When equivalent terms are stated for existent in our text, how many are there?
8 counting existent.
8 counting existent, and if we don't count existent, there's 7. Okay, those 7 can't be posited. Tonight, Venerable Samson agrees.
Why?
You are so right. Oh, I bet there's someone who can. Why? Thank you. Okay, we got a few takers. Thank you. Okay. Yeah. Well, so it follows the 7 can be posited.
With their definitions?
No, just the 7 equivalents.
Oh,
we'll get to
good.
the definitions.
I accept.
Okay, posit those 7, please.
Established base.
In order. Yep.
Yeah, okay. Existent, established base. Object of comprehension. Object. Object of knowledge. Object of comprehension of an omniscient consciousness. Let's see.
There's some clues being given.
Hidden phenomena
He said with confidence. Yep.
and phenomena.
Yeah. Hidden phenomena and phenomena.
I kind of odd that phenomena is after hidden phenomena. Because you're using the term before you define it.
Not necessarily cognized by an omniscient consciousness, but they are known by omniscient consciousnesses. Eh? I see head shaking.
Hidden phenomena is equivalent with what? Do you remember? Existent. Yeah. So they have to be known by a reliable cognizer and not necessarily an omniscient reliable cognizer. So in this system, the Sutra school, they say that all phenomena are hidden phenomena. All phenomena are hidden phenomena. So, all phenomena are hidden phenomena. The manifest phenomena are those which are known directly by a direct perceiver. But a direct perceiver, something that's known by a direct perceiver, like this gong, I can see this with an eye consciousness, primary eye consciousness, that's a direct perceiver. But I can also close my eyes and know this with a thought consciousness. Therefore, this can be a hidden phenomenon. In this school, they talk about a hidden phenomena being something that's known by a thought consciousness apprehending it. Yeah. Yeah, so we can rely on the definition to understand what that means. It's an object that's known in a hidden manner. Yeah. Okay, that's all right. We're just reviewing tonight. It's a simple, easy, gentle review. Okay. All right. So it follows the subject: existent, established base, object of comprehension, object of knowledge, object of comprehension of an omniscient consciousness. Hidden phenomena and phenomena are the 8 equivalents. Are the 7 equivalents to existence?
I accept.
Good. How does it? Okay, so let's just go through and talk about the definitions. So existent, we've already had. What about object of established base? Who's got the definition of established base on the tip of their tongue? Yes, please.
That which is established by a reliable cognizer.
Good. And object of that which is established by a reliable cognizer. And I had to actually think about it. And object of comprehension? That which is realized by a reliable cognizer. Yeah, we're using Venerable's translation there. Thank you. And object? That which is known by an awareness. Object of knowledge, otherwise known as a knowable object. That threw us the other day.
That which is suitable as an object of awareness.
That which is suitable as an object of awareness. Good. Object of comprehension of an omniscient consciousness. Not quite. An object that is realized. An object that is realized by an omniscient consciousness. And then hidden phenomena. You're cheating. Okay, don't cheat. Yeah. Actually, Yeah, we're trying to pull this out of our. Well, let's see what we can remember from our studies.
Phenomenon that is realized in a hidden manner by a conceptual consciousness apprehending it.
Okay, close. Yeah, it's an object, right? Object that is. You said phenomena. You said phenomena. It's on the recording. Okay, an object that is realized in a hidden manner by a thought consciousness apprehending it. Very good. All right. And phenomena. That which holds its own entity. Okay, those are sticking, aren't they? Enough repetition and they will stick. Good. Okay, how do the two compare, existent and established space? Mutually inclusive. Yeah, you can just call them out. Okay. They're mutually inclusive because?
They share the 8 doors.
Because they're different and they share the 8 doors of pervasion. Yeah, good. Okay. How do these two compare? That which is observed by a reliable cognizer and that which is realized by a reliable cognizer. Mutually inclusive. So not only do definiendums that are equivalent share the 8 doors of pervasion, but even the definitions of equivalence share the 8 doors of pervasion. And that means if whatever is one is necessarily the other, whatever is the other is necessarily the one, whatever is not the one is necessarily not the other necessarily not the one, and then whatever exists, you go through the same, a similar pattern with that. Okay. Now, listen carefully. If it's an established base, it's pervaded by being permanent. One head. Okay, if it follows that if it's an established base, it's not pervaded by being permanent. Yeah. Okay. So posit an example of something that is established base that is not pervaded by being permanent.
Not necessarily pervaded.
Not necessarily pervaded. Thank you. Sure. So the subject, the desk. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. It's an established base because it fits the definition of established base, and it's not permanent because it doesn't fit the definition of permanent. Posit the definition of permanent.
Subject momentary. No? Common locus.
Common locus of phenomena and the non-momentary. Thank you. Yeah, groupthink works tonight. Okay. Okay, so when we hear a statement like that, and we will hear statements like that a lot when we're doing philosophical topics. So if we say, if it's an established base, it's pervaded by being permanent. So we're talking about established base and it's being pervaded, meaning something is going to cover it or something's going to include it. It's being included by permanent phenomena, right? So the pervader has to be the larger group. And in this case, it wasn't. Established base is larger than permanent phenomena because established base is equivalent with existent and includes permanent and impermanent. So, good. Okay, so it's a bit like the second step in checking a syllogism. We're asking, are all established bases permanent? Yeah, they're not. So I think it helps if you can see a picture. Yeah, so that immediately, if you're familiar with it. So let's back up just a minute. If it's an established base, it's pervaded by being permanent. If it's an established base, it's pervaded by being permanent. So permanent is sort of like the predicate, right? Because the predicate is going to be larger than the reason. So the predicate, or equal size, the predicate is going to pervade the reason. So if it's an established base, it's pervaded by being permanent. But that's not the relationship of these two. So if it's an established base, that's talking about, like, you can think of it in terms of a reason. If it's an established base, it's pervaded by being permanent. Does that help? Or does that make it more confusing?
Which is the reason?
Well, it's not actually
no
a
reason
reason,
to.
but it's like the pervading. Well, like when we check, okay, let's say sound. Sound is permanent because it's an established base. That's an erroneous statement. But if we were going to check the pervasion there, we would say, well, is an established base necessarily, if it's an established base, it's necessarily permanent. That's what we're checking when we say, you know, if it's an established base, it's necessarily pervaded by being permanent. So I was just, what I saw was this relationship. Because if we can create a picture in our mind, it will be helpful. So if you think of it like in this relationship, if it's an established base, that is similar to positing a reason. It's similar. It's not the same, but it's similar. It's pervaded by being permanent. So this one's going to be bigger. Then something appears to your mind. And then you can ask, is permanent actually pervading established base? I don't know. I find that when I have these kinds of dilemmas to think about, if I can get a pattern in my mind, then it helps me to quickly come to an answer. Does that make sense? Like if I can see the first thing that's being asked, if it's such and such, it's going to be pervaded by the next thing, such and such. And then just think about, if anyone can make this clear, please.
I think when I hear it's pervaded by something, I think of like something smothering something. So if I can see like the big circle being permanent and then the established space being in the middle, it's like, no. There's something in that established space that's not permanent. It's outside of that. So therefore, through seeing the biggest circle in my mind being permanent, I can see that doesn't work.
Yeah. Okay, so you want a microphone and tell us how you work with it.
The easiest to think of the pervader and the pervaded, because the pervader is going to be the big one, and the pervaded is going to be the small one.
Okay.
So I try to, when I see these, I do what you do exactly, but I think in my mind, I'm seeing one is bigger and one is smaller, and the bigger is the pervader.
That's a good point. So in this syllogism, or in this statement, if it's an established base, it is pervaded. So it's talking about the established base would be the smaller because it's the pervaded. Yeah. Okay. Good. That's clearer than what I was saying. Thank you.
But the reverse is not necessarily true either, is it? Because if it's permanent, it's pervaded by being an established base. Because will is non-cow permanent, right?
Yep.
So a skyflower is a non-cow.
Actually, selfless is permanent. Yeah, if we said permanent phenomena, then we're talking about an existent. But if we just say permanent, that's my mistake there.
So, okay, if we said permanent phenomena, then we actually are looking at this in the reverse way of what's actually pervaded. Because established base pervades permanent phenomena.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's me being a little sloppy there. Okay, good. Thank you. I'm glad you brought that up. So the point he's making, we have used the example of non-cow a number of times. And does a picture immediately come to your mind of what non-cow is? No, it's not tofu.
When I hear non-cow in my mind, I see a little cow, and I see the whole rest of the universe around it. It's everything else that isn't the cow, including the non-existence, too. You have to remember that. But it's like everything else is just this little cow, and then there's the whole rest of the universe, and all of that is non-cow.
All that is non-cow.
Well, not all the other cows, but you have to put all the cows there.
Right. Okay, so another thing along this line that we have studied so far is talking about how if a category includes permanent and impermanent phenomena, the whole category is considered permanent. It's just a convention of this. And the same thing with existent. If a category includes existence and non-existence, then the whole category is considered existent. Okay, like selfless. What is selfless? Existent or non-existent? The category selfless. Yeah, the category exists. Okay, and selfless, is it permanent or impermanent? Permanent. Yeah. Yeah, so actually we could make a long list of permanent phenomena. Usually if we say, give me an example of permanent phenomena, we have a very short list. Well, there's not emptiness, selflessness, analytic cessation, non-analytic cessation, nirvana. Those are the four that are typically given, but it's not exhaustive. There's actually a huge number of examples. Oh, uncompounded space. Right. And generic image. Or conceptual appearance. Yeah. Tracy, did you want to? Oh, you're just holding the microphone for us. Okay, good. All right. If it's an established base, it's pervaded by being the common locus of a phenomena and the non-momentary. Why? You say why? Why? Yeah. Okay, it follows if it's an established base, it's not pervaded by being the common locus of phenomena and non-momentary.
Someone could accept that.
Okay, so we started out with if it's an established base, it's pervaded by being the common locus of a phenomena and the non-momentary. You said why? Okay, so it follows that if it's an established base, it's not pervaded by being the common locus of phenomena and non-momentary. Posit an example.
The emptiness of the table.
But isn't yeah.
It's the wrong school.
Isn't the emptiness of the table pervaded by a common locus of phenomena and the non-momentary?
Non-momentary. Oh, okay. So the table itself.
Yeah. Any impermanent phenomena. Yes, and this is exactly why we're doing this, so that it really causes you to pause and think about, oh, that's the definition of permanent phenomena. And so we just did that one. But now, instead of the definiendum, we're using the definition. And so it just causes us to pause and think about it.
The reason we need to say not necessarily is because she was able to give an example inadvertently of a permanent phenomena that is an established base. So you need to say it's not necessarily pervaded by, because some established bases are pervaded by being permanent phenomena and some are not.
No, when you talk about pervasion, it's 100%. Pervasion is 100%. You're not half pervaded, like being half pregnant.
But you say if it's an established base, are you talking about the category or talking about you can't find in?
No, we're talking about the category and established base.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good thing to clarify, isn't it?
Yeah, because when you say it's an established base, you could come up with an established base.
If it's maybe it should say. Oh, it's right. Okay. If it is an established base, thank you.
Then you do need necessarily, not necessarily.
Yeah, it's an instant of it. So I'm sorry. I think if it was the category, we'd have to say if it's established base, not if it's an. The article would clarify that. So when we talk about established base, we're talking about anything that exists. When we're talking about, and we could even make it clear by saying if it's an instant of established base, then that would really clarify what we're looking at. And this is part of our challenge, is to really understand, what are we comparing here? What are we talking about? Dan Perdue talks about that. The article A, yes. And they don't actually have articles in Tibetan. And so there you have to understand these things by context. Here we have the luxury of articles, but still on a fuzzy night like tonight, it's hard to really clarify. Okay, moving along. The 7 divisions of existence as found in our book, those can't be posited. Don't worry, you don't have to posit all 7. Why? Thank you. Oh, it follows they can be posited. Let's put them up on the board. Okay. What's that?
Yeah, it's going to be permanent and functional.
let's try to, can you remember them in order? That might be helpful. So what was the first set? Let's put all the impermanents on the left. Impermanent phenomena and permanent. Okay? You what? Oh, turn the mic. Okay.
Next one is, functioning thing and non-things.
Can we say non-thing? Thank you. Phenomena that are non-things. And the next one? Products. All right, she's got it. And its opposite?
Non-produced
Oh, if you can't do it without looking, that would really stimulate the mind a bit.
Don't be so silent though.
Oh, okay. No, I composed and uncomposed.
Composed and uncomposed.
Phenomena. And uncomposed.
Ultimate truth
Ultimate truth and conventional truth. Number 6.
Oh, yeah, specifically and generally characterized.
Manifest
phenomena. Hidden phenomena.
Phenomena. Phenomena. Okay, now it's obvious that I can sit here and ask you these questions, but why don't you pair up and just maybe do 3 or 4 of the definitions of these? Just ask each other to go through the formula that we do, asking each other. Maybe one person asks 3 definitions of any. Maybe the first person asks 3 of the definitions from the left side, and then switch, and the next person asks 3 of the definitions from the right side. And if you haven't been here for those, maybe you can just have a look in the book. So how'd you go with those definitions? Good review? What's that? You could read well. Okay, good. Tonight, it's what's that? How did the people online do? Venerable Sompton wants to know. Okay. So, impermanent phenomena. Definition? Momentary phenomena. Permanent phenomena. We already had that one. Common locus of phenomena and the non-momentary. Functioning thing. That which is able to perform a function. And phenomena that are non-things. Phenomena, which is empty of the ability. We have to say phenomena otherwise. Yep. Okay. And products? Creative phenomena. It's product. So it's, yeah. It's produced. Products, a creative phenomena. And non-produced phenomena? Non-creative phenomena. Composed phenomena. This one's helpful, isn't it? Disintegrating phenomena. And uncomposed phenomena? Non-disintegrating. Ultimate truth for the Sutra school. A little more difficult. Phenomena. So this is where we necessarily need phenomena at the beginning of the definitions of ultimate truth and conventional truth. Phenomena that is ultimately able to perform a function. And conventional truths? Why is that what? Phenomena which is ultimately unable to perform a function. Because we're talking about permanent phenomena, right? From the Sutra school. Oh, okay.
That for ultimate truth, you can't say that which is ultimately able to perform a function.
Well, we're just trying to stick closely, be precise
No, but
with the
there's a
definition.
reason they put it in there, or else they wouldn't have had to put it in there. But I don't think he explained it in the book. I was thinking about that when I read it, because these definitions are very specific, and there's usually a reason why they have to put that in. I was like, well, why would they have to put a phenomenon in? I can get it with the permanent one.
Christina, what do you think? She's got her hand up.
I think it
Let's
applies
keep a
to
microphone
the
on both sides of the room. So let's
conventional truth, because a non-existent is unable to perform a function, and they want to specify that it's a phenomenon. It's an existent.
Well, that's interesting. Yep.
I think that's what we said before.
Okay.
But I don't know if that would
But-
apply to ultimate truth then.
You don't know if that applies to ultimate truth?
Right, like why you would have to specify phenomenon for ultimate truth. You'd only need it for conventional truth.
Remember, here in this system, we're talking about to perform a function. Able to perform a function is to produce the next moment of the phenomena, right?
Mm-hmm.
And permanent phenomena don't do that. Non-existence don't do that.
Right, so you wouldn't need to specify that it's a phenomenon. You would just say that which is ultimately able to perform a function, which would...
You could
Yeah.
leave it out, but I take Venerable Tarpa's point, which
Yeah.
is that there's some reason that Purvachok and some of the older scholars put it in. Yeah. Okay. Conventional truth? Oh, we did that one. Specific.
Under functioning thing, that which is able to perform a function, they don't put it in.
Yep.
So if it's able to perform a function, it's necessarily a phenomenon, isn't it? Because a functioning thing.
This ultimately.
Yeah.
Okay, so we might say that we don't need it there. However, it's interesting that it's included with both ultimate truths and conventional truths. Yeah, probably there's a reason. And besides, we're trying to make our minds very precise, more precise with the definitions. So, and this is one translation of these definitions, right? If we looked at another translation, we might find, I mean, I don't think it would change phenomena being there or not, but there is some leeway with how the definitions are stated. Okay, specifically characterized phenomena. That's a little more difficult to hold in mind, isn't it? Did anyone get up to those? Yeah? Okay. What's the definition of specifically characterized phenomena?
That which is able, now I have to look, a phenomena that is established by way of its own character without being merely imputed by a term or a thought consciousness.
Yeah, very good. All right. Thank you for your honesty. Okay. Specifically characterized. This is challenging for us. It really makes us stop and think, now, wait a minute, what does that mean? Specifically characterized. That means that the specific aspects of an object are going to appear to a direct perceiver, right? So it's an impermanent phenomena, and it's going to be known by, without being merely imputed by a term or a thought consciousness. So it's known by direct perception, I think you can say. I mean, it's impermanent phenomena, and that's characteristic of impermanent phenomena. Whereas generally characterized is a phenomena that is merely imputed by a term or a thought consciousness and is not established as a specifically characterized phenomena.
That one's clear.
That one's clearer?
Yeah, in the sense of why they have to make it so long.
Okay. You want to take the microphone and tell us what you're thinking?
Easier to understand why you can't just say the first half. Why can't you just say a phenomena that is merely imputed by a term or thought consciousness? Well, you can't say that, just that, because a thought consciousness can think about everything. It can think about
Yes.
an apple, and an apple is not...
Right. Any hidden phenomena.
Yeah.
All
So
phenomena
they
are
have to
hidden
take
phenomena.
out, and it's not established as a specifically characterized phenomena. For instance, an apple.
Yeah,
And
good,
so
thank you.
that one's easier to understand.
Okay. Yes, you can think about any phenomena, any existent. Okay, hidden phenomena we did. What about manifest phenomena? If we think about the opposite of hidden phenomena, we'll come up with the definition of manifest phenomena. An object realized in a hidden manner, so an object explicitly realized, direct reliable cognizer. Yeah. An object explicitly realized by a direct, reliable cognizer. Okay, how do these two compare? Functioning thing and conventional truth? For the Sutra school? Okay, we've had mutually exclusive, mutually inclusive, and three possibilities. Functioning thing. Functioning thing and conventional truth. Mutually. This is so important to do these kind of drills, because then we're familiarizing with, well, for this school, the Sutra school, which category? What does conventional truth actually mean? It's referring to permanent phenomena. So, functioning thing and conventional truth. Okay, so you can look up there. How do these two compare? Specifically characterized phenomena and hidden phenomena. Mutually exclusive? What else?
What's that?
Specifically characterized and hidden phenomena. Okay, three possibilities. Why is that? Yeah. Okay, so all of these first six are referring to impermanent phenomena. The first six over here are referring to permanent phenomena. This last way of dividing existence is specific to the Sutra school, because they say whatever is a manifest phenomena is necessarily a hidden phenomena, but whatever is a hidden phenomena is not necessarily a manifest phenomena. In other schools, they're mutually exclusive. It's either manifest or it's hidden. There's no common locus. But here for this school, because they place such emphasis on the kinds of minds that are knowing these objects, so here all phenomena can be known, can be taken to mind by a thought consciousness. Whereas manifest phenomena are specifically known by a direct, reliable cognizer. So this will be confusing when we go on to the middle way consequence school. But this is how it goes. Yes, their understanding of these terms are different. Okay. How do these two compare? Composed phenomena and a non-produced phenomena. Mutually exclusive. Yeah. Okay. And product and manifest phenomena? Mutually inclusive? Yep. Composed phenomena and conventional truth. So it really helps to have the visual, doesn't it? And so this is what we're trying to put in our minds. Yep. Okay. And ultimate truth and generally characterized phenomena. Mutually exclusive. Good. Yes. This is a little bit tricky, isn't it? Because we have this idea of what ultimate truth is, because we've heard it so much from the consequence point of view. Functioning thing and definition. I like this one. 4P. It's not always 4P, we found. But in this situation, it is four possibilities. So shall we look at it? Yeah. Okay. So when we're talking about, I'm sorry I didn't say this sooner, but when we're talking about 3P, 4P, we're looking at, when we're comparing things, we're looking at, can we find something that is, we're comparing two things that are different, and we're saying, can we find something that is both? An example, an instance of both? Is there something that's one but not the other? Or the other and not the one? Or neither? These are the possibilities that we're examining. And this really helps us to sharpen our understanding of what is in each category, what's being talked about. So here we're looking at, what was the first one? Functioning thing? And so that means functioning thing and definition. So what is something that is a functioning thing and a definition? That which is able to perform a function. Thank you. So, now this this is a little bit tricky. If we said, is definition in general permanent or impermanent, what would you say? Permanent. Because definition includes definitions of permanent phenomena and definitions of impermanent phenomena. However, we can find an example of a definition of an impermanent phenomena. It could be any definition of any impermanent thing. Yes, it could be flat bulbous phenomena that's able to hold water, like the definition of a vase. So it's a functioning thing because it's this is the definition of functioning thing. So it is a functioning thing because the definition, the definitum are mutually inclusive. Okay, very clever, very good. Now, what is something that is a functioning thing that's not a definition? A gong, a vase, any impermanent phenomenon. And what is a definition that is not a functioning thing? Okay, I'll just put common locus, etc. Yes. So here we're talking about the definition of permanent phenomena. And what's something that's neither a functioning thing nor a definition? From the Sutra school point of view. Selflessness. Selflessness. Okay. Any questions about that? Does that? Selflessness. Selflessness. We'd have to say selflessness of person, okay? Selflessness and selflessness of person are mutually inclusive for this school. So we could just say selflessness. We can't say selfless because that's the largest category. Selflessness.
Or you could say inherently existent self.
Well, not for this school because we couldn't say inherently existent self because this school asserts. They assert a truly existent self or person or I. They say that the primary mental consciousness is truly existent. What their object of negation is a person that is self-sufficient, substantially existent. Right. Yes. As long as it's easy. Tonight, we're almost finished. Okay.
So that last one, you could pick any permanent phenomena, like you could put.
That is not
there.
a definition.
That's not a definition. It's like nirvana, cessation.
Mm-hmm.
You could pick any definitum of a permanent phenomena.
Yes.
Which is selflessness is an example of. Yeah.
You could even posit a non-existent there. I think it's better. I'll check this, but I think it's better to use an existent if we can. But so those are the four possibilities that we're looking at. Yeah, please. There are no dumb questions.
Can you explain why, when both, that definition functions as both a functioning thing and a definition, and under one but not the other, a common locus, which is also a definition, does not function as a functioning thing in that line?
Because it's the definition of a permanent phenomena, the definition is considered permanent. Okay. I think you weren't back yet when we covered that section. Yeah. Yeah. So it's kind of a convention, isn't it? That the definition of any permanent phenomena, those definitions are considered impermanent. The definitions of permanent phenomena are considered permanent, but the whole category of definition is considered permanent. Yeah.
Is non-cow a permanent thing, or is that impermanent?
It's
considered permanent because it contains permanent.
It contains permanent and impermanent, so it's permanent. It contains existence and non-existence, so it's existent.
So non-cow could be an example of neither.
Yeah. Non-cow, it could be an example of, it's not a functioning thing because it's permanent, and it's not a definition. Yeah. Yeah. It's really helpful to use those nons because they really make you think. That's why they're thrown in. But we won't talk too much about that tonight.